Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here. We're gonna wait for a few more minutes just to let more people join, and we'll get started briefly.
Good morning.
Right, I think we can get started. Thank you very much for joining us today. I am Eduardo Duran. I am Director of Sales for the North America region. And with me is Francisco Hansen, our Vice President. Please, just as a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the session, there is a button that you can click on and type your question. We will address it as soon as we can. And well, thanks for joining us again. Francisco, welcome. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Welcome everyone to this webinar. Look forward to speak with you today about your potential future S/4HANA license migration. I think that's something quite interesting. Thank you, Eduardo. Let's go on.
All right. So in order to get started and for you to know us a little more, I know that I always start, and Francisco tells me that I always try to sell something, but I want to give you the context of who we are and why we do what we do, and just in that frame we can elaborate on the S/4HANA transition and plan and strategy that we're going to be talking throughout this webinar. So we have three main pillars for our company. One is our SAM tool. It's called SAMQ. And what this, we typically have an increased visibility on your SAP deployment and how it's really being licensed and how the licenses are used so that you can optimize it. Then we also have the SetQ, which is a user provisioning web-based workflow. And it does also SAP role optimization to expand and reduce all of the assignment for the licenses. And then we have the advisory, which is led by Francisco here with us today, that actually does a very deep diving consultancy in order to help each individual company to achieve their goals in terms of their SAP process strategy and deployment. So we are a German company, but we've been around probably since the 80s. We, however, did a spin-off, and we've started working more specifically in SAP related deployments and consultancy advisory, and we actually have our own software tool that was developed by our engineers. And we now have a presence throughout the world. We just recently opened our offices in Asia. Like I said, we have offices here in North America. Francisco, I believe you're in Mexico right now, or are you in Europe? Where are you today?
I'm in Mexico City today.
Excellent. So, we are trying to be all over the place, and we're very excited to see the growth of this company helping other companies like yours potentially in SAP strategy. Who are our clients? We have clients of all industries, all flavors, and all sizes. The very interesting thing about this is we do over 100 or 150 projects average every year. We also have partners that are reselling. We are in over 40 countries, I'm sorry, and we've done some massive negotiations with SAP. We've also done average and smaller ones. Like I said, we are all across many business sectors. Regardless of the area of action, we do have all of these SAP licensing and ERP in common. So that's where our expertise comes in handy.
That's good that you say it, Eduardo, because that's basically the idea. So we want our clients to make informed decisions, and this is where we come in. We want them to have the best data possible before they get into deciding what to buy in the future, how much of it to buy, what are the proper terms and conditions that they need to manage properly their SAP environment. This is where we can help them, because we accompany this kind of transactions on a day-to-day basis. This is just experience that you can't get when you do this twice, 3 times a year. It's a bit different when you get to see so many different negotiation situations.
Precisely. So thank you for that clarification. And so, yeah, so the intention for this webinar, like we said, is we're going to try to understand what we need to know in order to make a good, properly thought strategy for S/4HANA migration. So, so what are the first considerations that we need to take into account when planning this type of strategy, Francisco?
So we were looking at a slide from Gartner the other day, and I'm showing you here a part of it. So what do clients have in front of them today when they are on ECC, so on Business Suite 7, basically with S/4HANA coming, RISE with SAP coming, the decision is I have to migrate, I have to do something or not. So what Gartner is saying here is, well, when this is a change of a platform, which of course is easier between staying on an SAP platform, it is easier to move from ECC to S/4HANA than it is to move to Oracle, to Microsoft Dynamics, whatever. But in fact, I should treat this as a project. I should treat this as something. And what does Gartner say? Well, the options are you move to another platform, so Oracle, Dynamics, Sage, Workday, etc. You move to S/4HANA on-premise or RISE with SAP, which is being very much promoted by SAP these days. Or for clients who don't have that many changes in their companies, they get their support for the actual SAP through 2027 by paying a bit more through 2030 if they want, and then go over to a third-party support. So obviously, most clients will stay with an SAP product. Not a question. But you should treat this as a project. And when you have a project, you need a business case. So what is the business case?
In other words, Francisco, just for clarification, what you're saying is that one size doesn't fit all. So, every SAP installation is different. We know that every ecosystem is different in every company. So what my best solution is may not be someone else's best solution. So that's why you're saying treat this as a project, meaning, deep dive into it, learn more about your own deployment, your own needs, and then, correlate both the technical aspects of the SAP deployment and migration, but also the financials. Are we going to talk a little bit about that today?
Exactly. And yeah, that's the idea. Basically, I mean, most clients that SAP has today use SAP as a strategic software within the company. It's one of the most important software packages that they have, and they support all the company's processes with it. But nevertheless, of course, you do have those clients who only have their accounting on SAP, which is not really strategic for many companies. And for them, the decision may look different. So let's move on to the next slide. What more do we have to consider? So what are the key challenges? For those clients who are looking for a strategic platform, it's a question of digital transformation. So when doing this transformation, apart from supporting your processes, you need to look into the platform changes. So many clients are moving today to the cloud with or without SAP. So directly contracting a hyperscaler or choosing RISE with SAP and moving over their SAP specific offering for the cloud. But you may also want to stand in your own data center or a smaller local provider for that. Then the licenses are new and different. You have to understand what is changing there. You have to understand what the price model is. I mean, RISE with SAP is totally different. It is subscription-based, as while you have on ECC or S/4HANA on-premise a perpetual license model. So need to understand what is involved with that. There will be changes in costs, obviously. You have a migration in front of you. You may have to want to implement new products, etc. So need to analyze those cost changes. But to understand the changes, you need to understand what is your cost base. And this is one of the main tasks in the S/4HANA migration, to understand your contract properly. What do I have today in terms of what did I buy some years ago, and what am I actually using out of these products today? So what do I want to actively migrate, and what would I rather want to exchange for other things? For instance,
so in other words,
usage.
So in other words, what we're saying is, I need to understand exactly what's my starting point, right? So before I'm able to do a planning for a strategy that will take me somewhere, the first thing I need to do is understand where I am, right? So some of our customers already have an S/4HANA contract, but on-premise. Some of them are still on ECC. Some of them are trying to get somewhere, but they're not sure why. And so this is one of the things that we can do with our software. And you know, I'm just going to say a little commercial here. What it really does is it helps you increase visibility into how you are actually using the licenses that you acquired from SAP. So once you understand first what it is, your bill of materials that you acquired from SAP, then how you're actually using it, and then understand if there's a gap there, and then you can start looking into the future, how you're going to use that as an opportunity going forward, right?
Exactly. So, and this is an important point. SAP is offering different migration paths on the licensing side to S/4HANA, which is the contract conversion, the product conversion, the cloud extension. To understand what your options are, it is very important that you understand what your license structure is today. Do I have little shelfer, like the usual buffer of 5%, 10%, something like that? Or do I have an issue with that? And in opposite to that, I bought products that I never got to implement. So I have a big bunch of 30% of shelfer that I need to convert into something useful. So this is something. Indirect and digital access is something you definitely need to understand and solve. What is your actual need for indirect usage? How much of it do you need? Then consider the time frame. So really to still keep on having support from SAP On the old platform, you will only have to 2027, so 5 years going from now. And the database. So the database for many clients who are today on Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, DB2, they will have to change to HANA, and they will also have to think through, is the HANA runtime version enough for me? Do I need another version of HANA? How much is the cost involved with that, etc.? So go on, please. I think I want to jump almost over the next slide, or briefly. This is just a hint on you on where to look. Show the other slide, please, that I told you to jump, sorry for that. Just a hint for you on where to look for functionality changes. Now, if you're migrating to S/4HANA, you of course need to look into the changing functionality. Although SAP is developing very rapidly all existing functionality on S/4HANA and RISE with SAP, there are still differences in the functionality of RISE with SAP and S/4HANA and ECC. So one of the tasks is to understand the differences, to understand there are new functions in S/4HANA and RISE, but there are also maybe old functions that you don't find in the same way that you have implemented that. So it needs to have an additional migration process there. And you need to understand those differences. This is one of the places to look. Go on, Eduardo.
Excellent. So, we were talking about understanding my my deployment, understanding my starting point. From that, we're going to have to go somewhere, and it's just like when you start a trip and you're trying to plan a vacation. You need to know where you're going, and you need to know your starting point. In order to get to those two realizations, we need to build a business case, right? So how do we do this? Is it really complicated? You said it needs to be a project. Who needs to be involved? I mean, can you let us know a little bit about this process, please?
Yeah. So talking about the strategic position of SAP in your company, there are different situations, as said. For some clients, SAP is not that strategic. For others, it is very much. So what is the business case, are we asking here? If you're migrating to S/4HANA and nevertheless will have some spending for migration, for new licenses, etc., first question is, what is the business case? Do I have chances with S/4HANA to find opportunities in my business area to bring in some improvements that justify by themselves with a proper return on investment this migration to S/4HANA? Or on the opposite, is this a pure operative update of a system because I don't have any areas of business where I have potential for improvement today? So to find out about that, you need to integrate your business areas. You need to integrate IT. You need to integrate procurement. You need to have some external experts maybe who have experience in migrations to S/4HANA to properly assess the costs and the process. Integrate all of those people in the conversation from the very beginning to understand what is the purpose of this project, what are the targets, am I implementing new solutions that don't exist today in my company, am I using this process of migrating to S/4HANA to do something else on top of it, or is this, in opposite to that, a totally operative project where the target is let it cost as little as possible because right now I have other issues in my company and I don't have the time to really be implementing new projects, things like that.
So it really is an opportunity for us to rethink what we want to do, right? It's a moment for introspection, and it would actually be a good opportunity to take care of those things that we've been putting off. And use this as an opportunity to improve the way that we do things through this migration of our SAP solution. That sounds very interesting. I thought it was more of a technical conversation, but it looks like a little bit of therapy on my company, right? It looks like I really need to look inside and understand, who am I and where I'm going, right? So do we want to improve the way we do things, taking this as an opportunity to do that? I mean, that's great. Thank you, Francisco.
So let's look at the costs now. So first of all, we already talked about this. You need to look into the functional part, into the architecture, and request full price transparency. So I've worked in software sales myself for a long time. I can tell you what they paid me for. Or no, better, Eduardo, you should know better about that. It's your task, in fact.
We've also,
what we pay you for.
exactly. So yeah, we've been doing consultants sales, and this works a lot in a consultancy manner, because you really need to understand where your customer is, and then try to achieve what's best for them. One of the things that you will notice when you engage with VOQUZ Labs is that we are actually on your side. And so we're going to try to figure out what the best case is for you. We're going to try to analyze and understand how you're using your licenses, how to optimize them, your processes and procedures.
Sorry, you're boring me. You're trying to sell me. You're trying to sell me. Now, that's not what I was questioning. What I was wanting to say is the following. Software salespeople are being paid to sell software.
Yes, of course.
So asking for transparency, asking to know what you want to buy is your task as a client. So I always get to see contracts where you don't see line items. I have even seen contracts where you couldn't even see quantities, which is really hardly believable. And but you want to see what you're buying, so ask for transparency. Ask the SAP people the questions that may seem strange, but you want to know them. So do that. Let them show you what the pricing basis is for everything.
That's exactly what we're trying to achieve here, right? So we're trying to enlighten everyone to know what are those questions that I need to ask to SAP. So what do I need to know, before I craft a strategy and draw a path forward?
So I'm sorry to say you were boring me. That was not
That's fine.
Well, I just wanted to get somewhere else, and this is basically take your responsibility as a client. I mean, software salespeople, our target is to make revenue. So don't expect us to get into all the details if we don't have to, unless you ask us. That's your part. So cost-saving opportunities. Many of our clients have been using SAP for 20, 30 years now. And of course, over time, they built a lot of shelfware that they sometimes don't have in total control. They don't know what they have there that they are not using. So you need to definitely find out about that. And SAP has a very good program there. That is the contract conversion that helps you basically trade in this shelfware during the process of migrating to S/4HANA. So one of the best opportunities ever to solve this problem once and forever, or at least for the next 2 years. Choose your migration path. We will get into that later. Optimize your user licenses. Same thing here. So I still see so many clients having professional users, limited professional users, and that's it. So doesn't make sense. I mean, there is a reason why SAP brought 20 different user license types over the years to make your life easier and to have user licenses that adapt better to the client situation. Now with S/4HANA and RISE with SAP, we don't have that many, but you need to understand how many and which of them you need. Contract terms. Now, SAP is flexible when it comes to contract terms. Not that I don't like, when I close a contract with a client, I don't like changing the contract. I don't like getting into changing the terms of the NDA that we sign with clients, but you have to. So, and I do check the NDAs that are sent by our suppliers or partners to us before I sign them. So do the same here. You have an opportunity to improve your contract terms, to discuss things that you consider necessary. We can give you a lot of ideas there on what makes sense and what doesn't. Mitigate digital access. So you need to find out what applications you have connected to SAP, and there is an opportunity to get rid of this risk of not knowing what may come up in an audit with SAP because you aren't licensed properly there. Maximize discount levels. Now, to get there, you of course need to understand your pricing structure and your discount structure. We can help you there too, by the right HANA licenses. So, and we are talking about the database here, not S/4HANA. So, well, you need to think of the classical things like backup, disaster recovery, special functionalities that you're implementing, whether you will be developing additional applications on top of HANA or not, only using this as a runtime version. This is important, and I see everything there in the market. Over licensed clients who are paying for an enterprise HANA license that they don't need, as well as the opposite, people who are doing things on a HANA runtime license that they are not allowed to do. So you need to really clear that up. And yeah, use concessions and credits. And we are talking here, SAP wants you today very, very toughly to migrate to RISE with SAP. Use that opportunity and consider if this is an option for you or not, and consider their drive, use their drive to your advantage in really properly analyzing this. Go on.
Sorry, I was on mute. I would like to take this opportunity to let you know that we have a question from Randev. He's saying, so SAP doesn't do anything on the automatic license migration?
I think, Vikram, you need to elaborate on that. So I will show you a bit on what SAP actually does, how they migrate your user licenses. But this is a pure commercial transaction. We are talking about you want to know how many licenses you need today and how many will you be needing in the future. And SAP will convert your actual licenses to new licenses by a conversion table. We have an example later on. I will show about that. But they won't tell you which licenses and how many do you exactly need. They will just convert your actual licenses up to the new ones. If you bought too many of them, this is not SAP's task. So you need tools like what we are talking about here, SAMQ License Optimizer, to really analyze the activity of the users, and based on that, decide how many licenses and which types you actually need. Or as we show here, now I can show you that, simulate future license demand. Can you explain that, Eduardo? What does that mean?
I think that this is a very sensitive point, and I agree with you. I think that we need to understand when SAP says that they're going to do an automatic transition, they're just translating what you currently have into the new language, and it's a direct conversion. But that doesn't take into account whether you're using it right, or like you were saying before, if you're over licensed or under licensed, or you have shelfware that you don't no longer require, that you probably did before, or you probably never implemented in your company, right? So one of the critical things that we've been talking about is understanding what's your starting point, right? It is an opportunity for you to renegotiate your contract with SAP. So try to understand exactly what you need. You know, if you don't need all those extra licenses, why convert them? Get other products instead, see? Or let's try to do some sort of a negotiation there. So, and precisely on that point, our SAM tool, one of the things that it does is once it explains and lets you increase your visibility onto how exactly you're using the SAP installation, then it tells you whether you have an opportunity to optimize it by assigning better user license types. And then it does an S4 simulation on what would that mean with the optimized version, so that you can exactly pinpoint what is it that you need to go and ask for when you try to negotiate with SAP. Does that make sense?
Yep, and Vikram is telling us about the risk of license valuation, and I suppose you're talking about audits. Yes, you will never get rid of audits with SAP if this is the question. Even if you cancel your maintenance with SAP, SAP is still entitled by the contract that you signed with them to do audits with you. So it is important to just find out how much you're using of what you bought. Do I have enough? Don't I have enough? And do I have the right products? So how do we approach today S/4HANA license migration projects? This is the process that we set up. So first of all, we analyze your bill of materials, and then we go on analyzing your license utilization. So basically, how much of what I bought am I using? Do I have shelfware? How much of it do I have? We look into digital access, analyzing the use cases, the particular single use cases, to analyze whether indirect usage is a better licensing model, so the old licensing model based on users and sales orders, or the digital access licensing model is the better option for you, and how much of it should you be contracting. Then we look into simulations, which means we analyze the activity of your users today, and with our simulation within SAMQ, we tell you, well, if you migrate to RISE, these are the 4 RISE license types: the advanced use, I always forget them, core use, and ESS use, and the developer, of course. And we can tell you exactly based on today's activity, this guy is doing material management, this guy is doing finance, so he needs a professional or advanced use in RISE with SAP. And we will tell you exactly how many of which license types you will be needing, how many licenses you should ask SAP to be buying. So then we look into quantities and the rollout timing to understand, well, if I migrate to S/4HANA, the project will start next December, and we plan with a 12-month period until go live. We need some servers in the meantime to transfer data between one and the other system. We are going to the cloud, so this part is going on another model. This other part is staying on premise. We need to have a proper project plan before setting up the financial strategy. We need to look into the database planning, and then we need to discuss the contract terms and conditions. With all of that, we build the financial scenarios that show you which is the most proper licensing strategy when you talk with a client.
So when we're talking about these simulations, you're saying, so one of the things that we do is we can help you correlate exactly the optimized version of the licensing into the new license type, which is the FUE, the full user equivalency. And then with that, we also go and look into how we do things in our company, meaning, what are the processes and the use cases that, imply digital access or not. And then with the advisory team that is assigned to my account, you would be letting me understand better, whether, where I'm standing and where I want to be, but also on the other hand, you're also letting me know where I have room for improvement in my own processes to be more efficient and to incur less expenses.
Okay, go on. So the basic licensing components don't change that much in S/4HANA. Like you will still have users, you will still have line of business solutions, and as the engines are called now, those are intended to not be user-based now, but more other metric-based, like business metrics, mostly revenue, spendings, things like that. Sometimes also technical metrics like cores, processors, etc. Then you have digital access, and then you have the database. These are the 4 core areas of licensing. But of course, the line of business area tends to be very complex. I mean, we're talking about some clients who have, I don't know, 150 different server modules in place. And according to this, of course, we can be talking of a high complexity. Go on to the next one. So what more? Apart from the licensing components, the users, I already said you have 4 user types. You have the developer, you have the professional user. The developer doesn't contain any user functionality anymore other than developing, really, in opposite to how it was in the past. Now, the professional user is always, apart from developing, the one who is entitled to do everything. And then instead of the 20 different user license types that we have only these 2 alternatives to the professional user, which is the functional and productivity use. Has advantages and disadvantages. So for some clients, this configuration with fewer license types is better than they were off before. I mean, I have clients who only have limited professionals and professionals, so basically 1 license type with 2 different prices. And I have clients who were making use of many more license types, like the employee self-service core user, worker user, logistics user, project user, etc., etc. So when you have a very fine license configuration, you're likely to lose a bit of it, because prices went from very high up to a very, very low bottom with the ESS user. Here we can't go that far down, but even the smallest user type has a lot of functionality, which is much more than an ESS had or an employee had. So depending on the situation, you will come out cheaper or more expensive than before. You need to check that before asking SAP for the proper user types. Go on. So what more? Let you speak about the S/4HANA user simulation. What is this, Eduardo, really?
So basically, one of the functionalities that we have in our SAM tool is the ability to simulate what your conversion is from your current licensing types to the S/4HANA licensing. So we've talked about this a couple times already, but briefly, it's very fair to understand that it'll take what types of licenses you currently have. It will analyze that based on your bill of materials, on your original contract with SAP. Then it will analyze how you're actually using those licenses and find room for optimization. Once it does that, then it will correlate those to the new types of licenses in S4. So with that, you will have a clear path on where is it that you want to go. So before we said we needed to understand where we're starting, now we can see where we're going. So this is kind of like the ability to trace your route in this process of migrating your SAP deployment.
Yeah. So I'm being asked by one of our attendants from a consulting company, what is when we say we analyze the situation of licensing and this is what we need, and SAP says something different. So this question is of course much more complex and depends very much on situations. When you buy licenses, you sign a contract with SAP where you commit to paying maintenance for those licenses that you bought, or you cancel this maintenance, of course. But as far as you have the maintenance contract in place, you're expected to pay maintenance for all your licenses. Now, the problem that we have today is as soon as we recommend a client to we find out he doesn't need that many licenses as he actually purchased them and now is paying maintenance for. What happens? Now, this depends very much on the situation. Depends on, do you need other licenses that you can trade in for those licenses you don't need? Or do you just directly want to reduce your SAP contract? I mean, reduction of contracts is the enemy of any software company. Let it be Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, ourselves. So what happens is basically, especially if you're on the stock market, this is reducing your promised revenue, and this is a big issue for a software company. So when you have big differences in what we find out is proper real usage and what you purchased, you definitely need to renegotiate with SAP and come to an agreement. And in occasions, you can get there by migrating to S/4HANA, by migrating to RISE with SAP. But as soon as you're reducing the amount that you're transferring with it from your bank account to SAP's bank account every year, the discussions get tougher. And there are ways around it, and there are solutions for that, but it's not an easy task, and that's understandable.
Correct. Okay. Let me just jump with a quick question for Vikram. It says you were showing us a screenshot that was showing the users and the price amount. Can you throw some light into it? So there are two ways that we achieve this. The first one is we have access to all the SAP groups in several countries, including Germany, and we're also in South America and Spain. So we understand what the actual list prices are, but we also go into understanding what your levels of discount are. Like there are different types of companies that get different types of or levels of discount. And based on this, we actually capture it ahead in order to do the simulation that we showed.
So, and Vikram was asking for what does SAP offer in terms of T-codes to analyze usage? Well, sadly, not that much. You have USMM and you have SLO. But basically, USMM measures what is your engine usage on a particular system, and it shows you how many license codes you have assigned to every user within SAP. If you did assign the wrong license codes, or even worse, no license codes at all, it won't show you anything usable. More than that, what you really want to know is what license type do you need for each user based on their activity, and this is where our tool comes in, this MQ license optimizer for SAP software, but that's just not our issue today. You want to find out more about it, set up a meeting with Eduardo, and he'll gladly explain to you what you can do with it and what you can't do with it, and give you some more information. Okay, transition paths. Let's go on. So now, mostly, SAP has a cloud extension program, not a very clear one, seriously speaking, because they don't publish that much about it. But the intention of it is to be able, when you're in maintenance with SAP, to transfer the value of your on-premise licenses into a subscription. It's a difficult discussion because one thing is assets that you have on in your accounting, and the other thing is costs. So how do you transform assets into costs? Not really possible from a financial point of view. But SAP will be willing to give you some advantage for having purchased licenses in the past when you migrate over to the cloud. But now most clients, when they are migrating over to S/4HANA, they look more into two paths, the contract conversion and the product conversion. So now here we are looking at the existing ERP customers and what they can do with the product conversion, which is basically they buy these S/4HANA Enterprise Management for ERP customers with a flat fee, and they stick with their old named users from ECC, so they don't change the user licenses to the new license types. This can be particularly interesting if you have more than 3 or 4 license types. Maybe this is something interesting. You need to measure that. And then you will migrate one by one engine. So let's say there is, you have cash management on ECC. There is an S/4HANA cash management module, so you can just exchange it. For having this S/4HANA Enterprise Management product, you are entitled to change one by one ECC products with their corresponding S/4HANA products as far as they exist. That is not the case for every product, but for many of them it is. So this is the easy migration path. You buy a cheap product, really. Here, you stick with your users and you migrate your engines one by one. Go on to the next slide, please. So for new customers, of course, that doesn't work. They have to go this direct way to S/4HANA. So they will buy the new user license types, they will buy HANA, and they will buy a line of business solutions. But let's get more into depth with the conversion product. So we were saying you have the cloud extension, you have the product conversion, you have the contract conversion. So cloud extension is mostly for new implementations of cloud products. And we are talking about exchanging old licenses for something new. You are implementing success factors, things like that. Product conversion is what I explained.
Opportunities for savings are, isn't it, Francisco?
Sorry, go on.
This is actually where greater opportunities for savings are in terms of going from an ERP traditionally installed to cloud. So you can actually convert this and be very successful at negotiating with SAP.
Well, I'm the biggest friend of the contract conversion because I find so for smaller installations, the product conversion works sometimes, not changing that much, changing one by one product. The problem here is you don't get rid of your shelfware. Now, if you have a bigger contract, you are likely to have a relevant piece of shelfware that came up over the years. And the contract conversion helps you solve this because SAP allows you here to exchange the value of your old contract for the value of the new S/4HANA contract. And this is an interesting trade-in. So you're saying you paid $1 million a year in the past, S/4HANA will be 1.2 million, so you are only having to pay the 200,000 difference and the maintenance for the whole new package. But basically, you can exchange products as you want. You don't use financial supply chain management anymore. You never got to implement CRM. You get rid of those licenses and exchange this for anything that you need on S/4HANA. So from a commercial point of view, a very attractive option here.
Yeah, it opens a world of opportunities and possibilities, right? So we start looking this more appealing when we understand that we can actually do that and improve our installation.
So I need to speed up a bit. I see we only have 13 minutes. Go on to the next one, please. And so talking about user mapping. So what Eduardo was saying before, the difference between what do I have and what do I need really, right? So if you just take the approach of what do I have, SAP may come up with a list like this one, which is from an actual negotiation with SAP, where they offered the client to exchange developers for developers, professionals for professionals, limited professionals for professionals, depending on the client's wish, or functional. Of course, professional, it's more expensive. I wouldn't give the money away. Employees for professional or functional. Employees have service user for productivity, and so on and so on. But you're basically saying, well, I have 100 of those, give me 100 of those. Well, the question is, do you really need 100? And is the guy here who today has a professional license really someone who needs a professional license? Shouldn't you rather analyze, well, based on his profile of activity, is this guy really someone who needs that license, or should I definitely classify him as productivity or functional use? Because he just prints out reports in SAP, he never enters any data, things like that. So you need to really take this into account. Now, think of the fact that user licenses are something between 30 and 50% of your total SAP spending. So finding out about this is essential to have a proper pleasant financial scenario that doesn't overload your costs.
Yes.
Go on.
So I have a question from Vikram. Have we done any comparison analysis using SAMQ license optimizers versus no tool in place? Yes, we have, Vikram, but I think that in the interest of time, I will get in touch with you personally after this webinar, and then I can go in depth on how this works for you very happily.
Yep. But I can tell you, just as a general trend, the savings that we show up with using tools and analyzing actual user activity, they, depending on the user, on the client's configuration, they lie somewhere between 10 and 50% of the total user costs, very much depending on the particular client. So there is very seldom situations where we can only show clients that they are under licensed. Doesn't happen that often. So talking about the product conversion, first of all, the boundary conditions, and this is original SAP knowledge as they presented it, I don't know, in one of the last Sapphires. The customer keeps the same contractual agreements. So we are not signing a new contract here. You can't convert into products you do not have. So you can convert a financial asset management into S/4HANA asset management, but you can't convert financial asset management into CRM. That doesn't work. You will get 100% credit there for the product, so that means basically 1-for-1 products. Your maintenance base goes on, it doesn't change. There are no partial conversions, so you can't exchange, let's say, half of your FSCM against the new supply chain management. You must change the whole engine. You can combine it with a cloud extension, and there is no conversion for SAP named users, so with some exceptions. So basically, you stick with your old user types. What are the benefits? Step-by-step conversion. You don't have to sign a new contract. You don't have to sign to migrate everything at once. You don't have to change user licenses. So it's if you are happy with your actual SAP contract, product conversion could be the right way to go. Let's look then. Yeah, go on.
So going a little back into the users, we have a question from Julian. Are the S/4HANA user types different between S/4HANA on-premise versus S/4HANA on cloud?
Yes. So RISE with SAP or S/4HANA Cloud Plus infrastructure, as I call it, have slight differences. So when we do the user evaluation, we basically use different profiles for S/4HANA as we do use with S/4HANA Cloud or RISE, as you can also call it. The functionality is similar, but it is not the same. So basically, the professionals are identical. They are allowed to do all, but then the core and ESS user don't have exactly the same functionality as the productivity and functionality user in S/4HANA. SAP has descriptions, public descriptions about the functionality that they have. If you contact us, we can provide you with a list of the functions. Original material from SAP, of course. So contract conversion. This is what I was saying. You have a big bunch of shelfware. You want to really sign a full new contract because your contract doesn't reflect anymore your licensing and usage situation today. Then contract conversion may be the right path to go. It is intended for a full contract wholesale conversion. So you do it at once. You cancel your SAP ECC contract. You get rewarded for it. Let's say you paid $1 million, so you have $1 million bonus towards the purchase of S/4HANA. So the customer migrates to the new software use rights. So your old contract basically doesn't exist anymore. You have a new contract with new use rights, etc. There is no line item mapping. So it doesn't matter. You could have a contract with those 3 products, and now you have a contract with those one of the old products and 3 new different products. There is no matching at all, which is very helpful in allowing you to really freely configure it. Sorry, I know we almost have no time, but I still have to discuss this one. So, and what is the benefit? Financial flexibility, really getting rid of a contract that doesn't match your expectations anymore and signing a contract that is more targeted to what you have today. Simplification, so get rid of old commercial terms, replace a list of a contract from 1980 with 1,000 attachments to one clean new contract today, new terms and conditions, renegotiate your terms and conditions, and still leverage your classic applications, use them until you migrate to S/4HANA. But also, what is my experience, if you had special terms in your old contract, make sure that during the negotiation, you take them over and you agree in special terms with SAP to reflect what you had already come to an agreement with them about. So, and finally, the cloud extension. The cloud extension is a way for SAP to help you migrating to the cloud and really having some financial benefits of before you were on the cloud, having purchased licenses. Problem that I personally have with it is what are the conditions? Because when we talk about the contract conversion, the terms are very clear. This is the ECC price that I paid. This is the S/4HANA price. I give you a bonus for something. It is around 100%. There are different models, different slight differences, but it's clear. It's crystal clear. Now the cloud extension is something. I get somehow bonused for what I purchased in the past, but I don't properly know why, how, etc. So not very happy with it, really. I mean, as someone who is involved in negotiations all the time, the cloud extension is a fine concept that allows salespeople in SAP to bonus me for having bought something in the past. But as a client, my problem is, what are the terms? So is this a one-by-one negotiation? Yes, it is. It is definitely. So you need to come to an agreement with SAP here. So go on. I think we have only 2 more slides, and with this, we'll jump over the HANA database things. I can't get there today. I already told you, understanding the different HANA versions and their functionality is vital to make a decision here. We talked about contract and product conversions, jumping over this one. So summing up, let's come to the final slide. Next one, Eduardo, please. So, of course, we are tool sellers, so everything is solved with a tool, but not seriously. I mean, I have been doing negotiations for around 10 years in the software area without using tools. And now the way I came to VOQUZ is because I had to use a tool to get a better negotiation result. So the tools basically help you understanding what you're using and what you need in the future, and thus getting a better outcome of your negotiations with software publisher. So this is why we say, even if it is not ours, buy a software asset management tool. It will help you in this process. Engage with a licensed expert, an independent person, not a partner of SAP, not someone who sells software, someone who really gives you objective advice here. Understand what you have today, your software entitlements, your contract conditions, your use rights, very important in the indirect usage area. Some clients, very few of them, have contracts that don't allow SAP to charge them. Indirect use, very old contracts, but if you have such a one, don't leave this out. I have seen contracts where professionals are entitled to do development work. You have this, don't get rid of this. Understand the different contractual options, obtain clarity about your S/4HANA roadmap, define what are what is the new bill of materials, the new set that you want to buy with them. Evaluate the set in terms of TCO. So don't look at the short term, but look into how well might costs be changing really over the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. And don't forget to evaluate the functional scope. So it may, if SAP is pushing a lot towards RISE with SAP, which I can very well understand, but you need to understand that although they're totally rapid in their development right now and offering a lot of functionality already with S/4HANA Cloud, they're still not there yet where they are with S/4HANA on-premise and ECC. So make sure that you have the functions and modules that you need there. Or you migrate and keep the old modules for a part of it.
Thank you, Francisco. I think that we're out of time, but thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Feel free to reach out. There's both our email addresses on the screen. So we will be happy to expand this conversation individually with each of you if you want. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time, Francisco. Thank you for your time, everybody. We look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you, Eduardo. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.